Hit record. Awesome. So, thank you for joining us today. We have here Mark in Prague, of all places. You are back in Prague, right? Before I
I
say
am in Prague.
you are in Prague, in Prague. So, the little bit of what I could say about you, you are a musician, a composer, a magician, a tour
Yep.
guide, and I'm sure a lot of other things. And I honestly didn't do a lot of research on this because I feel like we're going to do a lot better if we are conversational about it. I know that you know a
Okay.
lot of things, and I'm going to be able to hopefully pick your brain a little bit about it. Um,
Sure.
we're going to talk about alchemy, we're going to talk about mysticism, and other cool stuff, whatever that might
Excellent.
mean. So,
Sure.
um, let's dive in. Like, what is alchemy?
Um, well, we're dealing with centuries, so how it starts versus what it evolves to. But the thumbnail sketch that I would say is alchemy is simply their thinking of what science was at the time.
Okay.
Eventually, alchemy turns into a term called chemistry that we call chemistry. So it's
Interesting.
early chemistry, it's early science, to the point where like Isaac Newton wrote more about alchemy than any other subject.
Okay.
And even though there's I think the tone people take on alchemy is, oh, you're turning lead into gold, and certainly kings, and I would like that. But you can find equally that would have been a metaphor of turning the lead of who you are into the gold of something.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a multi-level of things that's going on. Alchemy, they want to figure out science, but they think that the term as above, so below. So our spiritual life and our physical life kind of merge. The church, and I don't mean this, it wasn't dictatorial, but people had Christianity in their life anyway. So it's sort of like you're like, okay, that works.
Mhm.
And so that I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it kind of runs along the lines
I
of
think so, because I think a lot of people will think of turning it into gold, like you said,
mhm.
now, but it sounds like back then it had a kind of very different purpose.
It had both. I mean, kings want gold, and many guys got in trouble for scamming the kings.
Ooh,
Um, but you're also making elixirs for healing. Now, whether they worked or not, because a lot of them would have opium and things like, so you think it's working. But, and,
good point.
uh,
You don't know really for sure, but you feel better if that's what your
yeah,
goal
you
is.
certainly, yeah, with opium, you're like, wow, this is great. Um, So I mean, alchemists would figure out a plating of metals, um, uh, elements versus compounds. They would come to understand that. So they're digging, but they're not always going in the right direction. I
Gotcha.
would say 500 years ago, they will look back on us and go like we're looking back on them, going, "Oh, those idiots, they're looking in the wrong place." We don't know where to look. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a lot of what kind of, and of course, each character in history brings a different thing. Some bring more mysticism or magic to it. Some more, try to be more scientific. But you're blurring lines. If
And
you're,
so, what
go
would
ahead.
you call mysticism? Like, how would you differentiate and where's the overlap?
Um, wow. Okay, mysticism in and of itself is okay, really, until we hit the 1400s, and it's going to be two things: the printing press and Protestantism.
Wow.
Prior to that, like Charles IV, who was the founder in some ways of this country, when he had his bridge built, he goes to his astrologers to say, when's a perfect moment to build this bridge so it lasts forever? And they come back with a moment that they figured out. And it's
Wow.
funny. It's 1357 on the ninth day of the seventh month at 5:31 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's an
very
odd numbered
specific.
palindrome. Yeah, but it's an odd numbered palindrome. It's 135797531.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were just lucky it was 1357, I think. So, and you didn't believe in witchcraft back then. In fact, the church
Hmm.
and some areas, and again, we're talking centuries in different locations. So, a hasty generalization is all I'm doing here. But a lot of places were like, no, to believe in a witch is against Christianity. But we're going to have some things change, and then the printing press takes any gossip and makes it run.
Wow.
And at that point, you will have a book written called the Malcolm Maleficus, and I'm pronouncing that way wrong. The Hammer of the Witches, or the Witch's
Wow.
Hammer. And it was a defrocked priest who wrote it. And even the church said, this is stupid. But it's so salacious because he's talking about incubuses and succubuses and, they're coming to have sex with you at night. And it's, ooh. And now with the printing press, it's churning out. And it became the second most published book after the Bible for about a century.
Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
that's when the early modern periods when we're going to get into the witchcraft craze and all that. But the Middle Ages, you're much more okay exploring. And so not that some people didn't think things were wrong, but you didn't have the witchcraft craze that they like to say happened in the Middle Ages. Let's get the early modern period. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different story.
So how did witchcraft and alchemy overlap? Like, were they considered separate things, or were they, because
Very
it,
separate, very separate.
even though they were kind of doing maybe similar things?
Yeah, but your witchcraft, and again, you wouldn't be calling it that. When we go into the modern period in England, they were called oh geez, crafty, like crafty men and crafty. The woman on the outside of town that knew enough about herbs to help you out, help a pregnant woman go through childbirth, things of
Okay.
that nature. Which is they're later going to be accused of things, but that's usually because the village gets mad at them. There's a lot of people believing that the medical profession was like, oh, those people, they're evil. The
Hmm.
medical profession's with the nobility. If you went to a university, you're probably working for nobility. You're not worrying about the village. And it's usually a cranky old lady at the outskirt of town. You had
Hmm.
a bad summer, the crops didn't grow, and it's got to be her fault. And that's eventually where we're going to go into, the witchcraft thing and all that. But again, there's a lot of moving parts to create it. Uh,
Definitely. And how did
it's
the mysticism evolve with that through that time period too? Were these always all separate things, but they had overlap?
well, there's overlap. One of the things, and would we call it mysticism or not? But there were like traditions in England at certain centuries, you would bring your cattle to the church to be on hallowed ground, and the priest would bless it.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that mysticism? Is that Christianity? Because the Protestants would go, it's a cow. It doesn't need to be on the religion. And again, I'm
Hmm.
not trying to bash Protestantism or anything. It's a different reflection of society. So they're like, no, we don't do that.
Hmm.
That's almost like putting the idol in front of you or something. So you would have had those things. Defining mysticism in the 1300s is hard because anything that we might think was mysticism is probably just thinking.
Yeah,
It's just really outside the box that doesn't exist,
right, right.
you know. And so, I mean, today our mysticism is a whole different subject. It's a
Yeah.
spiritual sort of mystery, and we may have goddesses or however you want to work it. Many. I come from New Orleans, so every block there's a different religion. So I don't bash on anybody, but the, what we would call mysticism today really didn't quite exist that way. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years ago, different social values, different social levels of thinking. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it does because even I'm perplexed. Like I've known people who were alive at the same time as Einstein, and as far as I was concerned growing up, like I would learn things that were normal knowledge, but he did so much, even if it wasn't just him, it was his people, and he got credit for it. Whatever. We won't go there
Hmm.
right now, but he changed so much of what was normal information. So to say like 100 years ago compared to 100 years ago, even though in a way it's a short period of time, it's a huge difference in our
Hmm.
knowledge and what our foundation is. So I could only imagine that many years ago and how, yeah, we might use the same term or we might describe it with the word mysticism or whatever it is, but what it was then is not what it is now
No,
at
not
all.
not in any way. Yeah, because
Yeah.
just what's allowed, what's not allowed. The idea of spells would have been very foreign to a lot of people.
Hmm.
Though there was certainly sorcery and stuff that goes on. And it's not that it doesn't pop up from time to time, and some people leaders would react to it, but it's not this horrible burning of hundreds of people, and
Yeah.
again, we'll get to that later, but we're not happening during the Middle Ages, which is kind of my main focus point of history.
And who do
So,
you think were like the most famous alchemists and mystics? Well, let's not go to the mysticists, or what are they called?
well, mysticism, and you would have
Yeah.
both. I would say probably two of the more popular would be John Dee and Edward Kelly.
Okay.
And Dee's a fascinating character, and both of these names, if you've ever read certain fiction or even played video games, they show up in it. They came up with this idea of angelic language where
Oh.
angels could speak. It's now called Enochian magic or Enochian language, and you might even see
Hmm.
books like that. You can go to Amazon and look up Enochian magic,
Very
and
cool.
John Dee and Edward Kelly. Dee is fascinating. He actually works for Queen Elizabeth. And among other things, he's a cartographer, so he'd map the waters around Great Britain. He's also expert in like astrology, astronomy,
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
everyone was. You did both. If you're looking at the stars, you're also doing astrological charts.
Okay.
Uh,
And back then,
and
you could see a lot more of the stars. I want to point that out because I think a lot of times people don't realize that we have light pollution now. So, like, when
mhm.
you look up and we are lucky to see like 20 stars, they probably had a very different experience than that.
Well, but I would also say the professionals looking at the sky today have better equipment than what they did back then and
Absolutely.
probably see deeper into, yeah, our light pollution is certainly there, but they always put telescopes on I think there's a big one in West Virginia where, nobody's living really that, and so it's kind of stays dark. Um, and I'm going to veer off on that because we had Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler here who were at the same period of
Hmm.
John Dee and Kelly. But Dee would not only do things like he taught the Royal Navy how to better navigate.
Wow.
He then plotted their course when they fought the Spanish Armada, and supposedly he went back home to cast spells to assure their victory. And he was a spy for the Queen.
Wow.
And what's interesting, and now there's some debate, but his signature was 007.
Oh, okay.
And some people say it wasn't a seven, it's a cane. But the other explanation I heard was the two zeros were for eyes, for seeing, and seven is a number of completion. It's the number of days God took to create the heavens and the earth. And in fact, you'll always find in any religion, threes and sevens are always big numbers.
Okay.
It's the way our brain works. We think in threes, we think in sevens. It's so they become mystical numbers in a lot of things. So he's doing all of that, and he figures out this anochial or angelic language, but he needs a scryer, and
Hmm.
he can't look into a mirror and see things. So he needs to find one, and he finds this guy named Kelly, or Talbot may have been his name as well. There's a bit of mystery behind him. The only images we have are well after he died, and he's always wearing a hat covering his ears, or he has very
Interesting.
long hair. Because we know in Edinburgh he had his ears removed for counterfeiting.
Oh, like that was the
That was,
punishment?
yeah, as a punishment.
Wow.
So he was a bit of a scoundrel. But these two guys would travel, and basically what they would do is they'd show it up in where royalty or nobility was, and they go, "We speak to angels," and royalty's like, "Yeah, well, what are they singing about me?" And they're almost like seance shows to go kind of thing.
Wow.
Uh, and they will end up here where Kelly may or may not have been assigned to spy on Rudolph II. We don't really know. But brilliantly, Kelly shows up about 2 hours late for the meeting with the emperor. He's not slept for days, and the first words out of his mouth are along the lines of, Sir, evil has infested you, and unless you listen to us, your soul will be lost, or so many, which I'm sure for Rudolph II, it's just another Tuesday, but he never quite gets. gets caught up. He'll go back to England. D will actually become one of the royal alchemists
Oh, wow.
and was arrested once. And they think either because he was caught faking or because the king actually believed he was turning lead into gold. And this would happen sometimes where they would go, "We don't want you leaving the country if you can do this."
Mm.
And he tries to escape. He breaks his leg. He ends up with a wooden leg.
Oh, my.
He's arrested again, and in his attempt to escape, he will break his other leg in three places and a shattered leg you didn't survive back then. So
Oh,
he
wow.
would die in Prague. But these are they're really interesting characters. They're like Wild West, medieval and early modern period, just craziness going on.
Wow.
Uh, yeah.
Wow. And so how did it go from there? After that, how did it progress?
Well, we get a big explosion then after that because Rudolph II, who's the emperor at the time, he doesn't really care what you believe in. Most Habsburgs are Catholic.
Okay.
You were to be
Yeah.
Catholic, Jews and Protestants we're not so thrilled with. He doesn't care what you believe in. And when he dies, and he's like many Habsburg, he's kind of going crazy near the end of his life because of the inbreeding. His
Mm.
brother, who doesn't like him much, starts taking pieces of his country. And then, really, after he passes away, we just got a couple of years and we go into the 30 Years' War. And that's going to change everything.
Wow.
That just changes the whole landscape. You're not going to have, you're still going to have alchemists per se, but it's going to be looking a lot different. The 30 Years' War is just is a mess. It's the most violent war before World War I in Europe.
Wow. Wow.
So, and a lot, and I wouldn't even say violent, but more death because, well, also because starvation, disease, whatever else.
Yeah, you
So,
just couldn't survive. Not necessarily you were in
exactly.
battle, you just couldn't really survive.
Right.
Wow.
So that will really change the whole layout of everything because that just takes Europe into this originally a religious war, but it turns into also politics and you know how everyone gets, I want a peace of mind in this. So it gets to be an ugly, horrible thing.
Yeah.
And I think it really changes after that. You don't have this truly traditional alchemist that keeps secrets, which was one of their ideas. And so if you watch a movie where they go, "Oh, the ingredients, an eye of newt and blood of a dragon," that's code. That's
Right.
code. Because I taught you, I don't want other people to learn my ingredients. So this is how you remember. And thus it was sort of a way of so there was no eye of newt or blood of dragon. We're
Right.
calling he may have met, some sort of flower and poke your finger and drop a couple of drops in. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some interesting plant names that, and when you go to the description of it, you can kind of match up and get an idea of what they might have been talking about. But it makes
Hmm.
perfect sense that it would be code because they're trying to figure it out, but they're not trying to share it. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. If you can turn this into gold, you don't want everyone to know how to turn this
I've
into
got
gold.
competition for that, and I don't need
Right.
it.
Unless if, I mean, if we had a massive amount of gold, maybe it would be more peaceful and not less peaceful if everyone could do it.
Then we'd want diamonds.
Right. It
Then
would
we
just
just
change
want,
to something else.
yeah, gold. What do they say? There's only about a 60 foot by 60 foot compact square of gold in the entire world.
Really?
Something
That's
like that. I don't
something.
know if
Yeah.
that's exact, and I could be very wrong on that. So whoever's watching this, they're probably taking notes, going, "He's wrong," and it may be very true. But it's a very fine art, and that's
Yeah.
why it's whereas diamonds, there's so much more, but now it's being controlled. So we only
You can
sell this
actually
many diamonds.
take like dead bodies and make them into diamonds, right? Like there are people who take their pets and have them cremated and then they're made into diamond jewelry.
I have no idea.
I've
How
heard
creepy.
about that. Yeah,
I don't want Fido around my neck. I really don't.
it's a thing.
Yeah, I guess.
Um, so, so how did they perceive? I'm sure they must have. Did they call what we might call today ghosts? Did they call them angels? Did they call them spirits? Did they call them something else?
Usually if you had ghosts, and again, there's some different games on this, but usually it's more in these stories.
Okay.
Like in New Orleans versus here. New Orleans, we every house is haunted and there's screaming and yelling and blood dripping down walls and all. And here it's there's a few people that after they died they're still around, but it's that's not quite. Usually you're cursed, usually you're stuck. Um, but as far as believing in ghosts, they might believe in something spooky, but you would much more bring it along in lines of your beliefs as far as like church. So it'd be something evil or
Oh,
something
okay.
good,
Okay.
whereas we think ghost is kind of neutral. There would probably be, and I'm sure there's people who've studied this a lot better than I have that know better on that mount, but overall it's not quite that, just that's grandma just rocking in her chair. No, they just didn't have that as much, and maybe on a personal level, and here's the problem: we don't have enough written record.
Yeah, definitely.
So as far as the villages and go, people did have some writing skills, but jotting down journals and stuff wasn't something that they would tend to do.
That makes sense.
So you don't get a lot of that, but it could be very well both one, more evil because we're living in this more Christian-based society, but also we don't know for sure. And I'll be honest, it's not something I've dove into enough to where I want to sound anyway like I know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay. Just because some people like it's they instead of calling it the devil or instead of saying it's something bad and evil like
Mhm,
that, they would have said, no, I've been blessed and it's like an angel. But it's kind of the same thing. It's their interpretation.
mhm,
So that's why I was kind of curious if that was, but that's really about the time period as well as like you're saying the beliefs that are very popular at that time because
mhm.
they might if they were having those experiences and they thought they were positive, they were not about to go telling everyone, you know.
Yeah.
Not if you're going to have your ears cut off or not if you're going to be shunned or you're not going to be able to survive the same way because even to this day there are a lot of things that people experience that they're afraid to tell people about because of
Yeah,
how other people will respond to it, and you don't want to be kicked out of your village,
right. No, I knew a guy
unfortunately.
in Boston, and he truly believed a UFO had visited him, and there was this group that he would visit, and it got out at work, and that poor guy was,
Mm,
and he fully believed it. And I've got no judgment on it, so, but there was definitely, yeah, he'd probably been better off not having that discovered.
yeah,
A little
yeah,
bit
or
of
just tell the
ridicule
right
on it.
people. Keep it
Yeah,
quiet, have your code, stuff
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Create your own secret code for it. So, where did we go from there?
Let's see. Well, what else are we? Um, Wow, I don't know. Mystically, other things that I might suggest. I thought since we're talking about sort of the mystic stuff, one of the ones that I found, and I didn't really even think about it until I came to Europe, is on the back of the dollar bill.
Hmm.
You got the triangle and the eye on it,
Yeah.
and everyone thinks that's the Illuminati.
Hmm.
And if you came to Europe and visited any church that was made latter part of the 1600s forward, it's simply the seeing eye of God and the Trinity.
Oh, interesting.
And you'll see it in a lot of churches. It's up there. It's not the Illuminati taking over the world or anything. So imagery and stuff like that. And again, I think we do that with the movies and,
Hmm.
and I get it. We need to make something spooky. It's there. Let's use that image. Um, so I don't know. I was just kind of grabbing something else that was sort of accused of being mystic or, you know,
Hmm.
creepy, and it's really not.
Yeah. A lot of times
Um,
that is what happens is like there's a slant on it, kind of like modern day clickbait, but there's kind of like this way to get your intrigue and whatnot. But it's like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal, or it's something that you can find the real reason behind pretty easily if
mhm,
you look for it.
if you
You know?
bother. I mean, sometimes it's fun to believe the weird conspiracies,
Yeah.
uh, but sometimes not so much.
Yeah, definitely. So
So.
now how is there still mysticism in Prague now?
Well, what I'd say is there's a couple of witchcraft shops, so to speak. And again, I've because of language barrier, my Czech is horrible. I've not gone in to really chat with them about their angle of beliefs, but
Hmm.
they seem to look the same as like our witchcraft shops in New Orleans. They sell tarot cards, they have some different imagery up, that sort of thing, books on the subject. So I would say along those lines. The thing you have with the Czech Republic is it's one of the most atheist countries in the world.
Yeah. I
And
remember
so,
that actually. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And so if you don't believe in God, you tend to not believe in ghosts.
Okay.
So we don't really, again, that their ghost stories are much more folk tales
Okay.
and are
And there's
looked at as
probably like
folk tales.
a moral or there's something to it. It's not just like to scare you. There's some other
Oh,
purpose to
it's
it.
no, it's just to scare you. I mean,
Oh, it
we
is?
have, yeah, I mean, and if you ever read the real grim fairy tales, not the ones that
Hmm.
have been like, no, there's no moral to that. You read Little Red Riding Hood, and at the end, she's eaten part of Grandma, and then she's killed and eaten. There is no huntsman. There's no moral to the story, and
Wow.
it was simply designed to entertain and spook each other.
Wow. Well,
So
they did a
here
good
in,
job. Grimm's
oh
are
yeah,
pretty creepy.
here we
Almost
have
prefer the Disney version once in a while because it is happily ever after
Yeah,
versus
me
not.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. He got off the beanstalk. Whoa, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I will mention one character that we have here. His name is Vodnik. He's like at best described as a water troll or something like that. And his job is simply to take you, drown you, and keep your soul in a jar.
Just to have it?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
someone's got to do the job. But where this comes from is since the Czechs are by the river, and especially when they were making using the clay for pottery and such, you got kids running around, and if they hop in the river, they're downstream and dead. And
Mm.
if you take a 7 year old and say you can't swim, they're going to prove that they can within you got a wet kid in 2 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
So with Vodnik in there, they're not getting in the water. And so there would be some of these things are may and again, whether that truly was why they used him or not, that seems to be the main story. And you do have a lot of those things that are just definitely there to scare the kids or to entertain. And well, the Grimm brothers would visit women's sewing circles, and that's where they would collect their stories.
Interesting.
Well,
Like they would
there's
eavesdrop or they would like walk in and invite
I
themselves.
guess they would be, hey, do we mind you mind if we sit and write your stories that you tell?
Oh,
Because
wow.
I mean, they're sitting for hours sewing, and they know Edna's going to be scared of a vampire, so they're going to tell a vampire story to scare her. And, they're I'm sure there was that going on, but they needed to entertain themselves for hours,
Wow.
and you
I
didn't
had
have
never really
TV.
thought about how they got their source like that. So,
Hmm.
wow. That's
Yeah. Well, I
interesting.
thought that they were trolling for wives, and it does turn out that one of them eventually did marry a seamstress. So, hey, I don't know.
Wow.
Good times.
That's interesting. That kind of reminds me of during the Civil War here in the US, there was painting, like women on porches would paint, and the
Hmm.
soldiers would come over and they wouldn't know that they were hearing all the information, gathering it, and what they were painting was actually like maps of where things were or things that were
Oh.
useful, but it was like hidden so that only the right people knew what to do with it. It's kind of a similar thing, although totally different purpose of why they were doing it.
Mhm. That's
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. All right, well, we have a few minutes left. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share?
Not really. Actually, the other thing that I would have kind of mentioned, I because we were talking about more the mysticism of things is
Mhm.
and you didn't want to get too creepy, but I was going to kind of bring up voodoo real quick.
Oh, go for it. Okay, go for it.
Because everyone thinks that, again, voodoo is everything you've seen in the movies and they're dancing around, chickens' heads get cut off, and then we're blah.
Mm.
Um, Voodoo, if you break it down, is simply a African belief system that was Catholicized.
Oh, okay.
Because the Catholics would believe that a slave had a soul where the Protestants, and again, generalization, Protestants
Right.
didn't. And so a slave was allowed to learn to read. Now, they were reading the Bible, they're not going to be very fluent. But what they're seeing is also in Catholic Church, there's that saint. Well, we have this God, they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this overlay that begins to happen. So you'll see it in Umbe, Santeria, Voodoo, any of these. It's this. So again, to try to to get rid of that scary part about, voodoo. Because I know as a tour guide in New Orleans, people would go, "Where's a good voodoo place?" And I go, "Do you want to go to a tourist voodoo place or a real voodoo place?"
Mm-hmm.
And they would always go, "Tourist voodoo," because they were frightened. And, there was a great woman that would teach them what it was really about, but nobody wanted to go see her.
Oh, wow. And it was really about, now, was it really about more like healing work using a doll?
Oh, it's well, there's all sorts of games with that. Again, as little, so big. But there was one take that I've read come from a couple of different sources where the healer might use the doll and go, "Oh, okay, this is Bob, and Bob had an elbow problem, so I'll put that pin in there to remind me about his elbow. Oh, and he
Oh,
had a
okay.
headache the other day, so I'll put a pin." Now, I don't know how, again, that one becomes sort of folk tale-ish. I'm sure there's people who've studied it deeper than me and have a better grasp, but that's one of the thoughts. I'm sure that some people want a doll to get the a doll of their ex and go, so. But yeah, I don't think it's always as evil as all of that. I did make the mistake once of giving a goofy gift of just a silly voodoo doll, with a big smile and goofy, and it was for good luck or something. And I found out later that the person went, "Is this evil? I don't, you know."
Oh, oh, wow.
And they didn't ask me. And the person says, "No, this is just goofy. Look at it. Look at the packaging. Look at the colors. There's pinks and stuff." And so I think there's a unneeded stigma
Yeah, yeah.
around it.
But it is still practiced today, not in the touristy kind of way, in an authentic way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I had a friend who went to Haiti to go through the rituals, and it's a very interesting what he could tell me about it and all. And so there's
Wow.
and honestly, voodoo people, they bicker like Baptists. They really do. It's just another religion that's like, "Oh, well, we're more of the religion than them over there," and so,
Interesting.
but there's some very benevolent
Yeah.
practitioners of it. So I don't think they're trying to chop all the chickens' heads off. And if you think about that, that's simply sacrifice, which we see in the Bible,
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
so
And now, speaking of chickens, I think we have like 2 minutes left. Because you said where you grew up, did you grow up near the fortune telling chickens? Was that like a thing where you were? Or like not necessarily where you grew up, but like in New
oh
Orleans,
no,
was that a thing?
uh what, killing a chicken or something like that,
No,
sacrificing?
like they're fortune tellers. They like tell you their fortune, your fortune, they like peck at things and that gives you your
I've never been
fortune.
around a chicken like
I've
that.
seen this is like a real thing. I was just wondering if that was like maybe more common.
The Etruscans actually had a way of, they had, I think, a 21 letter alphabet. I'm not sure exactly. And they would lay out the letters and then they'd put corn and a chicken would peck which corn and they would fit. It was kind of their early um, fortune telling,
Yeah, yeah.
but it was laid out in a certain way. And, I'm sure that you were very free in your interpretations. It's like,
Gotcha.
"Oh, the chicken ate the wrong thing and that's the queen." No, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great tonight. And, So, but I know not how they actually worked it. I just remember reading that the Etruscans used chickens. So I've never known usually if you had one, you just the woman I know who was a voodoo practitioner, and you're like, "What the chickens for?" "Eggs."
Oh. I mean, it's a little fun to say, and they help me with my voodoo, or and they help
Yeah.
me with my fortune telling, or whatever it might be. But
Scare
okay,
the
interesting.
tourists.
Very cool. So I think we're just at about time. It's telling me less than minutes. So where can people find you? I put your website and I said that it's coming soon.
It's coming soon. MarkFaulkner007.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This was really interesting, and I think we have a lot of things we can look up to know more, you know?
Yes.
Very,
Yes.
very cool.
Look forward to doing it again with you sometime.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Take care.
Bye.